All right. Hello and welcome, everyone. We're so glad that you could be joining us today. My name is Stephanie. I'm the multimedia specialist here at Posit Science, and I will be your co host for today's webinar. Today's webinar is a part of our larger BrainHQ Academy series where we talk about the intersection between neuroscience and other certain topics. Today's topic is a one that I'm very excited for called Trick or Cheat: How Magic and Illusions Fool Our Brains. So let's go over the agenda for today. So, for the activity is actually going to be run by our guest speaker today, Jay Alexander. More on him in a minute. Following the activity, Dr. Henry Mahncke is going to give his presentation on magic and illusions and how they fool our brains. For those of you who haven't attended one of these webinars before and haven't met Henry yet, Henry earned his PhD in neuroscience at the University of California, San Francisco, where he studied brain plasticity with our co-founder, Dr. Michael Merzenich. He has been the CEO of Posit Science since 2011. Henry, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Stephanie. Thank you.
All right. And then our guest that will be joining Henry for the discussion portion is a master magician and mentalist, Jay Alexander. Jay Alexander is a premier corporate and society entertainer who has appeared on The Today Show, Good Morning America, and TEDx Talks. He is the owner and star of the highly rated Mind Tricks live show at the San Francisco Magic Theater. For over 25 years, Jay has pursued his passion of creating unique live entertainment by mystifying audiences, both young and old, with miraculous effects of the mind and hands. So, Jay, if we could have you come on and join us and say hi.
Oh, welcome. My name is Jay Alexander. It's so good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for being here. It's wonderful to have you. Following the discussion between Henry and Jay, there is going to be a live Q&A. If you have any questions at all during the performance or the presentation, I should also say, feel free to use the Q&A button on the Zoom control panel to type in your questions. I'll be curating them, and I will be moderating those questions for Jay and Henry towards the end of the webinar for the live Q&A portion. If we don't get an opportunity to answer your question, we're sorry in advance, but there are a lot more of you in the audience than there are of us, and we're going to do our best. The other thing that I wanted to note is that today's webinar is being recorded and it will get posted to our YouTube channel sometime next week. If you want to be notified when that recording is available, you can head on over to youtube.com/brainhq and subscribe in order to receive that notification. Everyone who is registered for this webinar is also going to receive an email from me sometime next week with a link to the replay as well. All right, so I think with that being said, I'm really anxious and eager to get to the activity here. Jay, you want to go ahead and take over?
Sure, absolutely. What you'll be seeing today is a little bit of a mixture of magic, psychology, lies. What I do is literally is a mixture of all those. And I'll show you just a quick thing. A piece of magic uses a card, and I've cut 4 holes into the card. And you can see when I put my hand behind it, the holes, the real holes are not just black piece of paper on there. And take a look. Watch. This is magic. Hole number 1. Hole number 2. And last but not least, hole number 3. You can see the holes have moved 100%, but if you just watch it, take a look. Don't take your eyes off it. Right now. That's hole number 1, hole number 2, and hole number 3. Just like magic.
This is so exciting.
So that's the magic part. And at the same time, I've always been fascinated with magic and psychology. And with what I do is really, again, a mixture of the two of those things together, and as well as memory and other things put together into a show that's unique and different. Let's try something. I have a deck of cards, and the deck of cards, one card, I'm going to tell you right now, is turned upside down. Only one card. Henry, we're going to start with you. Cards that are either red or black. I want you to tell me, do you think the card that's turned upside down is red or black? Name one now.
Red.
Red. Good. It's exactly what I would have said. Now, do you feel like I made you say red?
No, I feel like I exerted my own free will out of my own.
That's so exciting. Good. Stephanie, it's a red card. That means it's a diamond or a heart. Pick one now.
Diamond.
Diamond. Exactly what I would have said. So Henry said red, you said diamond. So Stephanie, it's either a low card, like 5 or below, or 6 or above. 5 or below or 6 or above. What do you think it is?
Low.
Low. Henry, ace, 2, 3, 4, or 5. Pick one of those cards now.
2.
2 of diamonds. Here's the thing. The cards have never gone out of your sight. 2 of diamonds. If I go through the deck of cards, you will see that there's one card and only one card upside down. There it is. Upside down. You can pick any color, any suit, any number.
Of my own free
You guys
will.
together picked the 2 of diamonds.
Incredible.
Oh my God.
Incredible. Are you manipulating my mind as we speak, Jay?
It's I'm manipulating your mind. I might be just playing with your mind. Who knows? It might just be pure magic.
Beautiful. I love it.
And you guys want to try something with everybody here?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
We can do it.
Fantastic. Here we go. On the screen, you'll notice this is just a screen taken from my Netflix page. And on the screen, you'll see some of the shows have people in them. Some of them have cartoons. I want you to put your finger, all of you. If you're watching at home, I'm talking to you. Take your finger, point to any show with a real person in it. Any show with a real person in it, go ahead, do it now. Fantastic. I want you to now, don't do anything yet. You're going to move either left or right to the nearest show with a cartoon character. Go ahead, do it now. Great. You're going to move again, this time up or down to the nearest show with a real person in it. Go ahead, do it now. Fantastic. You're going to make another move, this time diagonally. Don't do anything yet. To the show with the closest show with it that's a cartoon. Go ahead, do it now. Fantastic. You're going to make one last move. For this move, you're going to either move down or to the right to the nearest show with a person in it. Down or to the right to the nearest show with a person in it. You should be on a show. So I don't know where you began, so there's no way I can know where you ended up. Remember the name of the show, because I'm going to take the movies off, the shows off in a moment. Remember your show. I don't know where you began. So there's no way I can know where you ended up. But you are on The Queen's Gambit. Did I get it, Sarah? I think from that reaction
Absolutely.
I did. Henry, yes?
Jay,
Fantastic.
incredible. And via Zoom, amazing.
Thank you so much.
All right. Jay, thank you for kicking us off. And I think I'm going to show just a few slides now and give a little talk about sort of the neuroscience behind some of this, if I may. We're going to talk about a little bit about magic and how illusions fool the brain. And I'm going to kick us off by saying, hey, I've been a fan of magic since I was a little kid. I've never learned a magic trick, I got to tell you. But when I was young, I learned to juggle and I learned to ride a unicycle, which is sort of magic adjacent. And one of my heroes was a magician named James Randi, pictured here. And I love this quote, right? Magicians are the most honest people in the world. They tell you they're going to fool you, and then they do it. And what an incredible thing that is. They tell you exactly what's going to happen. And then, as Jay said, we sort of employ tricks around attention and working memory and expectations to create just a delightful experience. So, I'm going to do a magic trick of my own, actually. Now, I'm not a magician. I'm not even close to someone like Jay, but I am going to do a little trick here in PowerPoint, I hope. So, I want you to pick a card, any card here, and I want you to pick your card, and I want you to focus really hard on that card, and I want you to remember which one you picked. So, everyone in the audience, pick your card, hold it in your memory. I'm going to turn all the cards upside down, and I want you to remember your card. I'm going to give my talk, and we'll come back to this. Remember your card. Okay, so a few ground rules for this talk. First of all, hey, we love magic in this. And I am not here to give any spoilers. I'm not here to tell you how any sophisticated tricks work. I will show you a few things that are available on YouTube. I don't think that's spoiling the trick. They're sort of out there educationally on YouTube. And mostly what we're going to talk about is the neuroscience of magic. Hey, what is happening in your brain that lets a skilled, talented magician like Jay, do these sorts of amazing things that we've just seen and you've seen elsewhere as well. So let's start off here. What makes a good magic trick? Here we have Penn and Teller, two of the world's most famous magicians. They're on the Jimmy Fallon show, and they are going to do a trick. And I'm not going to show you the whole trick. I'm just going to call out a few points here, which is they're going to pull a rabbit out of a hat. And the first thing that's important about a magic trick is to, set some expectation. And here, of course, Penn is showing us his empty hat. We see the hat is empty. There is obviously not a rabbit inside of it. Our brain has the expectation now that that hat is empty, right? And then there's a signal. Penn taps the hat that Teller is holding with his magic wand. And then there is a delightful positive surprise, right? A rabbit comes out of a hat that we clearly saw was empty. So what is happening in our brain as this goes on? Well, when we see a magic trick, something kind of cool happens in our brain, which is when that positive surprise happens, when that rabbit comes out of the hat, the brain releases two really important chemicals. The first of which is in green here. It's called norepinephrine. And this is a chemical that comes from deep within your brainstem, and it gets released when something surprising happens, right? Now, it could be a positive surprise, like a rabbit coming out of a hat. It could be a negative surprise, like a tiger has just jumped out behind a tree and you have to run for your life. But norepinephrine comes on when we have that moment of surprise, like in a magic trick. The second neurochemical that's really important in magic is dopamine. Dopamine, shown here in red, also starts here in the brainstem, also projects all the way across the entire brain, and dopamine signals that something rewarding or positive has happened. Not when that tiger jumps out from behind a tree, but when something fun and cool and positive happens, like a rabbit coming out of a hat. Now, these neuromodulators actually help rewire the brain. They help brain plasticity in some different ways. When your brain releases that first one, norepinephrine, when you're really surprised by something, that norepinephrine tells the brain, hey, you might need to rewire yourself because something unusual and surprising is happening. You might need to learn from this experience because you weren't ready for it. And when dopamine comes on, well, a lot of people think about dopamine as the pleasure chemical or the reward chemical, right? Your brain pumps dopamine when you eat a cookie because it tastes good and it's rewarding. And what dopamine tells your brain to do is dopamine says, hey, rewire yourself because you need to repeat the steps that led to this very positive and rewarding situation to try and make it happen again. So your brain is in this very plastic, ready to rewire state when you see that rabbit come out of your hat. Now, why does your brain work that way, right? We're not necessarily designed or evolved to understand magic tricks. Well, the brain works that way because, hey, when we are a baby, everything is a magic trick to us, right? A baby's brain starts off and it's new and it's inexperienced. A baby's simply not sure what's going to happen next, right? They just got put onto the earth. So imagine, you're playing peekaboo with your baby, right? And when, you put your hands over your eyes and you disappear and you reappear, that is a positive and delightful experience for your baby, right? But underneath, your baby's brain is rewiring itself to make a prediction, right? When mom, or in my case, dad, hides behind her hands and then comes back, she will still be there. That's something the brain has to learn, right? The brain has to learn that just because an object is hidden, or a mom or a dad, doesn't mean it's gone away forever. It can come back. So our brains rewire themselves with that norepinephrine for surprise and that dopamine for reward to make predictions about what's going to happen next in the world. So we're not constantly surprised by everything that happens to us. Now, as we get older, right? There aren't really so many surprises anymore, which is why teenagers look so bored and grumpy all the time, right? The only surprises left are magic tricks, right? So with experience, the brain has rewired itself using brain plasticity to be an amazing prediction machine. The brain is attuned and optimized for the environment in which we live, and there's just not too many more weird and delightful surprises anymore, right? We know that if a ball flies up, it's going to come down. We know that if a hat is empty, a rabbit's not going to come out of it. And we know that, hey, coins don't just appear behind our ears, which is why when a magic trick happens, it pumps that norepinephrine and dopamine, and it's so surprising and so delightful. So let's talk about a very, very simple kind of magic briefly. Let's talk about illusory motion, right? So this is a flip book, and many of you may have seen these. Some of you may have even made it. This is a series of still images that we're going to flip through really fast. And what happens when we do that? Well, let's take a real quick look. Right? There's a still image on an index card. This talented artist has drawn them. And when he flips through them very quickly, well, we see an illusion. You know, one might almost call it a magic trick, right? It looks like it is moving. Our brain fills in the gaps between those still images to create a moving image like that, right? I mean, that works if you've ever been to a movie as well, right? Just a series of still images projected really quickly that look like they're moving. So that's a very simple form of magic that relies on your brain predicting that, hey, these things didn't just skip to one another. In the real world, that movement occurs smoothly. And so your brain says, well, hey, that's probably what's happening here as well. Well, let's look at a more advanced form of illusory motion there. Let's look at a form where our brain has to actually make a prediction. So here I'm actually going to show an image from a baseball game, right? And this is going to happen fast. We might have to watch it twice. But in this baseball game, you are going to see an incredible fake out by someone using illusory motion, okay? Let's have a look, and then I'll explain it.
He doesn't have a play, turns around just in case, but look at Brendan Ryan.
Oh, but he hasn't thrown the ball.
Play.
Throws it to his baseman.
Rajay Davis.
Let's watch that one more time. You're going to see Seager here in number 15. He has the ball. He's going to do an illusory throw, which is going to trick this runner into keep running because this runner thinks Seager doesn't have the ball anymore, but Seager still has the ball. He's going to throw it to the baseman who's hidden here, and the baseman's going to tag this runner out. Let's take a real quick look at that again. This is a beautiful use of illusory motion and an illusion here. Ready? Here it goes.
Knows he doesn't have a play. Turns around just in case.
But he doesn't throw it. The ball's still in his hand.
Staying with the play.
And the runner is tagged, right? Now, this takes advantage of our brain's prediction. Our brain predicts that when we see that motion, that throw right there, our brain just assumes that, hey, that ball must have left the hand. It must have gone long away. This runner takes advantage of that, starts to run, and then, of course, is tricked and gets out when that ball comes back to him, right? So our brain is making that expectation and using that, and Seager's using it in this game that take advantage of that expectation, that illusion, that trick, one might almost say, to get the runner. So I want to dive in then to this idea. You know, what's happening in a magic trick? And magicians are manipulating our attention, our working memory, and our predictions, but mostly attention and predictions, as we'll talk about. This is a picture of a magician from several generations ago, Dai Vernon. I'm sure Jay knows who I'm talking about. Dai is also known as the man who fooled Houdini, because Houdini, the escape artist, had said, hey, if I see a magic trick 3 times in a row, I know what happens. And Dai Vernon legendarily did a card trick to Houdini 5 or maybe 7 times in a row, and Houdini could not figure it out. And Dai became a very famous magician as a result of his skills in this front. And what he's talked about, and of course I'm summarizing here, is, you know, he was a cognitive scientist in a way, as almost every magician has to be. He talked about overwhelming people's relatively limited ability to pay attention to all the incoming data. You just can't keep track of everything that's happening quickly. He took advantage of people's inability to maintain everything in their working memory and later recall it. And then, of course, he also played into all of our unconscious, unavoidable, the assumptions and the expectations and the predictions that our brain makes about how the real world works and what's likely to happen. So let's talk about that neuroscience for a minute. Let's start off with attention. Now, this is very simple. It's a little subtle, but I think it'll work on Zoom right here. I want you to look at that tiny blue dot that's in the center of the screen. And you see there are 3 overlapping circles here. Now, in the lab, I can ask you to look at that dot, and then I can say, with your eyes on the dot, I want you to focus your attention on the upper right circle. So put your eyes on the dot, focus your attention on the upper right circle. Most people, when they do that, will experience a very subtle but noticeable sense that that upper right circle is now brighter than the other two circles that we're not paying attention to. Now, if it doesn't work for you, maybe a little bit of a laboratory phenomenon, but it reliably works in the lab. So why does that happen? Well, it turns out that when we shift our attention in that way, we actually enhance our brain's ability to process signals coming in from where we pay attention to. And we can see this with electrophysiology as well. We can actually measure brain waves in people. So here's a brainwave experiment. And in this experiment, a person looked at the center of a screen where this X is, or this cross, and they were told, hey, something's either going to appear on the right-hand side or the left-hand side. But the trick, if I may put it that way, is that, hey, sometimes the object, in this case, this little bar, appeared where they told it was going to appear, and sometimes it didn't. So if we tell this person, I want you to pay attention to the left side of the screen, and this bar appears in the left, well, look at the brain waves that we can record. And they're shown in this black solid line. We get this big initial response, and then this big bounce, and this big bounce. This is how brainwave works. You get kind of an oscillation. But what if we tell a person, pay attention to the right, and then sneakily we present something in the left? Well, then we get the brain waves in this dotted line, and you can see they are smaller and softer. And what that tells us is quite literally the brain doesn't really process what we don't pay attention to. It processes it some, but quite a bit less than what we pay attention to. And this is a core part of just about any magic trick. Now, here's a magic trick. And again, I don't think I'm spoiling this. This is available on YouTube. This was actually published in a scientific paper. That's what I'm showing you here. There are scientists who study magicians. I hope you're delighted to know that. And, in this magic trick, here's the magician. He picks up a lighter and he makes a light. You can see it right here in his hand. And then he captures that flame and he takes it to his other hand here. He brings it up close to his face here and he blows it. And of course it disappears. And then where's the lighter? He looks back at his original hand and the lighter is gone, right? So he's taken the flame away from the lighter and then he has vanished the lighter, right? So how does he do this? Well, this is a wonderful example of how attention can work in a magic trick. So at this point here, you are paying attention to this hand because he's moved it up here and he's blowing it. And that's where your attention goes. And your attention is not on his left hand where he very simply drops the lighter and it goes away, right? And the reason we can't see that is because of what I just showed you. When our attention is up here, where the magician is looking, we actually are not processing information out here where we're not looking as well. And as a result of not processing it, the trick works. And we get this delightful experience that the lighter has vanished and the flame has been blown away. And we can see that, an even bigger example of that, with this short video I'm going to show you called the amazing color changing card trick, right? This is on YouTube, but I'm going to show it to you real quick.
Hi, I'm Richard, this is Sarah, and we're going to perform the amazing colour-changing card trick with this blue-backed deck of cards. Now the idea is very simple. I'm just going to spread the cards in front of Sarah and ask her to push any card towards the camera.
Right, okay, let's see. I'm going to go for this card here.
Okay. Now Sarah could have selected any card at all from the deck, but she selected the card which is now face down on the table. And what I'm going to ask her to do is show us which card she selected.
Right, so the card that I chose was in fact the 3 of diamonds.
The 3 of diamonds, okay, an excellent choice. That card goes back into the deck. Now I'm just going to spread the cards face up on the table. Do a little click of the fingers, and you'll see that Sarah's card here has now got a blue back. Not particularly surprising. What's slightly more surprising is all of the other cards have got red backs. And that is the amazing color-changing card trick.
So that's a cool trick, but that's not what we're going to talk about here. What this person is now going to tell us is everything else that we didn't notice over the course of this.
Hi, I'm Richard, this is Sarah, and we're going to perform the amazing colour-changing card trick with this blue-backed deck of cards. Now the idea is very simple. I'm just going to spread the cards in front of Sarah and ask her to push any card towards the camera.
Right, okay, let's see. I'm going to go for this card here.
Okay. Now Sarah could have selected any card at all from the deck, but she selected the card which is now face down on the table. And what I'm going to ask her to do is show us which card she selected.
Right, so the card that I chose was in fact the 3 of diamonds.
The 3 of diamonds, okay, an excellent choice. That card goes back into the deck. Now I'm just going to spread the cards face up on the table. Do a little click of the fingers, and you'll see that Sarah's card here has now got a blue back. Not particularly surprising. What's slightly more surprising is all of the other cards have got red backs.
So when you see it like this, of course, you see that he changes her shirt and she changes her shirt and they change the tablecloth and they change the background. But if you're like most people, when you watched it originally, you did not notice a single piece of that. And that's because our brains exhibit a phenomenon called change blindness, where we don't notice a change if it's unlikely to occur unless it's incredibly surprising. And what that means is when his shirt is changed color off screen and then he comes back, our brains don't even notice that change because we have made a prediction. And the prediction is that, hey, whatever shirt he's wearing is the one he's already worn, right? And so our brains are immune or blind to that change. And that's a key part of all kinds of fascinating magic tricks, is that we assume something's not going to happen because it doesn't usually happen, and we don't even notice it if it does until the magician calls it out. And if you've done BrainHQ exercises, you might know the scene crasher exercises works just like that. In this exercise, you're asked to remember the location of these, in this case, 6 mushrooms on the screen. They go away, and when they come back, a new one is added, and you have to notice where that new one occurs. And it's a challenging exercise because of change blindness. Now let's talk about something that's also related to this notion of manipulating attention. And here we're going to see the legendary magic trick, the vanishing ball trick, right? Now this is being performed by a scientist, not an expert magician like Jay. So we're going to have to forgive him a little bit, but he's going to do this trick for us, right? He's going to throw a ball and it's going to vanish.
Watch the ball.
Throws it again, throws it a third time.
What did you see?
I'll stop there and go on to say,
Watch the ball.
Right? Now, about 2/3 of people, when they do this, even for a guy who's not an expert magician, see that ball go up and it's a surprise because it doesn't fall back down. And our brains create this trick because our brains are prediction machines. When that person, the scientist, throws this ball up, we expect the ball to go up, especially when he did it twice already. And it's a surprise. It's a magic trick when it doesn't fall back down. And what's kind of cool about this from a brain science perspective is that researchers have shown you don't necessarily follow the ball with your eyes when he does the trick, but you do follow it with your attention. And it's that fact that he has captured his attention with his trick that makes the trick work. And I'm going to show one more, and then we're going to
keep track of where the P goes.
Let's talk about working memory. Almost everything we've talked about is manipulating attention, but I do want to say a word or two about memory, because memory is an important part of many magic tricks. And here's the classic shell game. Probably everyone has seen an example of this. This is a particularly good one.
Keep track of where the P goes. Now I'm going to put it underneath the middle shell. There's nothing else underneath the other 2 shells, and there's nothing in my hands. Now I'm going to move the shells around nice and slow, and all you have to do is follow where that P goes. Put that there, pull these 2 here, put this one here. Now I'll say, is it on number 1, number 2, or number 3? Now nobody ever thinks it's on number 1, and they're right, it never is. Usually people say it's number 2 though, and it's not there either. No, in this case, it's underneath number 3.
Beautiful example of this trick. I just love it. And I love it as a neuroscientist because it feels like it's a memory game. You have to remember where the P is, but it's really not a memory game. It's an attention trick. No matter how good your working memory is, you're never going to find the P because it's simply not where your memory says it is. And again, if you've done the BrainHQ exercise target tracker, you've done an exercise like this. We show you these 5 bubbles in this case, a whole bunch of other bubbles appear, and then you have to remember, hey, where are the 5 that we saw you tracking? It exercises your working memory. That's good for you, but it's not going to help you with the shell game trick because folks like that are so good at manipulating their attention, your attention. So let's put it all together. Hey, what do magic tricks rely on? They rely on misdirecting your brain's attention, on overwhelming your brain's working memory, and most importantly, relying on the predictions your brain makes that a good magician can then violate. And what I want to bring together about this as a brain scientist is, hey, your brain creates a conscious experience based on, visual input. What's coming into your eyes? What do you see? But your brain also has attention and working memory and predictions, and that completely rebuilds and reshapes the information that's coming in through your eyes. And what that means is what you see in your mind, your conscious experience, is simply not necessarily what happened in the world. And that's true in everything we do over the course of the day, but it's most important and exciting when we see a fantastic magic trick. So I'm going to wrap up. I'm going to finish my own magic trick. Think about the card that you picked out at the start. I want everyone to remember what card you picked out at the start. I'm going to remove the card that you picked out from the start. And I'm going to show you that I removed it because I'm going to turn these cards over, look for your card, and you see that it's gone. I'll stop there. What does that mean for you and your brain health? Hey, being fooled by a magic trick doesn't mean your attention and your memory isn't sharp. In fact, being fooled by a magic trick means that your attention and your memory are sharp enough that you're surprised by the skill of the trick. So keep on training with BrainHQ, enjoy BrainHQ, and enjoy the show. And with that, I will stop my slides and we will turn it back over to me and Jay. All right.
Hello.
Nice
That was
to see you
fantastic.
again.
I enjoyed that so much.
Well, I think we have a very shared interest in psychology and cognitive science and neuroscience and magic tricks. So tell me, what brought you into the world of magic? What takes a young kid and makes him grow up to have this amazing show like you've put together?
So what gets you into magic usually is completely opposite of what makes you good later on as an adult, which is the most interesting thing. And most kids get into it because they're insecure and they find something that makes them special. As a kid, I had a terrible speech impediment and I still have very bad dyslexia. So had a hard time learning to read, still have a hard time reading. And I saw my grandfather took me to see a magician, Doug Hinning. I was 11 years old. Walked out of the show. I knew I'd found my passion. I didn't know what passion meant because I was 11. But that feeling of I have to do this started that day. And I said, I want to be a magician, Papa. How do I become a magician? And he takes me to the Houston Galleria in Houston, Texas. There used to be a store called the Fun Shop, and they sold magic sets. He bought me the Hocus Pocus magic set. And if you ever had a magic set, they all come with the same tricks. They come with a trick called the cups and balls, ball and vase, deck of cards, a magic wand, and a book that says 101 easy to do magic tricks that are never easy to do. No, I was so excited. I was like, I'm going to be a magician. And I wanted to learn so badly that even though I had terrible dyslexia, I just read it over and over and over until I figured it out. And sometimes I'd figure it out wrong, but I would come up with my own ways to do things because I wasn't reading it correctly. And then I'd go with my mom to work. My mom had a children's shoe store. It's called Brian's Buster Brown Shoes. And at the store, I would show customers the magic. It brought me out of my shell. It gave me confidence. It made me want to work on speaking clearly. And and from at the store, someone said, "Do you do kids' birthdays?" I said, "Yes, all the time." Got $5 and took that $5, went straight to the magic shop, bought a $5 trick, and literally it's never stopped. My life has been basically the same thing, just on a bigger level. And I started doing that as a kid. I met a man named Mr. Wayne who became my mentor when I was 13, and he was the one who kind of really influenced the style of magic that I do today, even though of mentalism. He didn't teach me that, though. It was interesting he thought you can, as a kid, the look of reading minds and all that was creepy for a kid to be doing to an adult, or to people. But that's what the show he did. But he taught me all the foundation of magic and the different types of magic, and would talk about a lot. And it just kind of put me on a path. And after I got older, he passed away. My show now looks more like the stuff I watched him do, and I built on that to create the show that I do now.
Jay, I love that story, and I love it for a lot of reasons. First of all, it's always fantastic to hear a kid pursuing their passion and growing up in the way that you have. But I also love it as a brain scientist, right? Because we talk with a lot of people who have something like dyslexia, and many times that can be something that's a real limitation, and of course it is in certain ways. But to talk to someone who's like, hey, because I found my passion, I was able to rewire my own brain, right? I read through that book,
Absolutely.
I learned these tricks. I just love it because I think our society needs to figure out ways that any kind of brain can succeed in it. And you're obviously an incredible example of that. Now,
Thank you. And I'll tell you though, I don't think of dyslexia, even though yes, it's held me back in certain ways. I do believe that those kind of things make somebody stronger in another, that it's given me focus on what I like a lot more than most people. Um, and look, everyone's got something. Some things are visible, some things are not, but everyone's got something. And so it's just kind of figuring out what are your strengths and how do you make it work?
that's exactly how we see it as brain scientists, right? And that's fabulous to hear. Now, you mentioned mentalism as you were talking.
Yes,
Can you tell us? I mean, now, obviously, mostly what I talked about was sleight of hand because I think a lot about attention and
correct.
so forth. Can you tell us and our audience about the difference between like sleight of hand tricks and mentalism for people who haven't heard of that?
No, absolutely. Basically, the very, very basic, I'll go further into it. Magic amazes the eyes, mentalism amazes the mind.
Okay.
And I think that's the most simple way to put it. And with magic is usually, things with balls and cards and smaller things that it doesn't have to be small, it can be big too, but things that are more visual, and that's when you're watching the magic. Mentalism happens more in the mind. It's I've spent a lot of time basically because of my dyslexia learning about mnemonic memory systems, and I'm
Ah,
fascinated by memory systems. So it's you know, I do a lot of things that to the audience doesn't look like memory, but it is memory. It's a mixture
okay.
of magic, and when I say psychology and memory and all these different things put together that has a little bit more of an intellectual feel to it. It's mentalism plays more with, I'm trying to figure out the right word, with perceptions to create the illusions. And
Yep.
that look like mind reading or psychological influence. And sometimes they really are. Sometimes it just looks like that.
Yep.
And I really like playing with that line of what's real and what's not real.
Yep.
And somebody makes a ball disappear. It might be fun to watch. You take a little red sponge ball, put it in your hand, it disappears. It might be fun to watch. It doesn't touch your heart. It doesn't touch your mind the same way as when you're thinking of your best friend as a child, and I tell you their name. Um, that is like one of those things where when people watch the show and they see that, and I like that writing that line of, I always say on my show, I'm not psychic. It's lies, but that feeling of people leave and they're like, wait, is it? Was it not? Like, what just happened? And
That's
so that's kind of the little difference with mentalism and magic, is it
okay.
really is it's playing a lot more with your perceptions. They both play with perceptions, but it plays a lot more in your mind. The magic is completely happening in your mind by the end of the show.
I love that description. So, as I mentioned, I'm a huge fan of magic, and in fact, I have to tell you and our audience that 2 weeks ago, my wife and I were in Los Angeles for a long weekend, and we had the
Yeah,
fun of going to the Magic Castle, which I'm sure
wonderful.
you know, but many of our
Yeah,
audience members may or may not, is essentially the guild in Los Angeles of professional magicians. And you go there for the evening, no pictures are allowed, formal dress. It's an incredible experience, and we saw some amazing magicians. And one of the people we saw was a mentalist. And I was the one selected from the audience, and he reliably guessed numbers that I was thinking of, had me roll dice that he could not see, and told me the numbers that I saw. And I have to say, as a neuroscientist, I was simply amazed because with sleight of hand, even though I can't see the trick and I'm delighted by it, like you say, I kind of have a sense of what must be going on. But with those
yeah.
mentalism tricks, I was left completely at sea. At the end, I turned to my wife and I said, who's also a neuroscientist, and I said to her, the only explanation is that this guy is magic. And so I wonder if you could tell us, and again, in no way want you to reveal any tricks, but we
Right.
talked about some of the toolkit that a sleight of hand person has,
Sure.
around attention and overloading your memory. Would you say that's the same toolkit a mentalist has, or are you relying on fundamentally different approaches to manipulating people's cognitive function and their state?
It's both. I'd say yes. I think it starts at that. And then with mentalism, you take it a step further with a little bit more psychology that goes into it. And just like when you're showing the Richard Wiseman piece with the color changing thing, which I love that I didn't even realize until I just saw you. I've seen it before, but when you just showed it just now, he had the gorilla in the background when he was revealing it, which
no, I didn't even notice that.
Which goes back to the invisible gorilla test that
of course.
That I can't remember the guy, the two scientists' names who came up with it, but I'm like, oh, that's a nod to that, which I thought was a beautiful, beautiful thing. And so it's the inattentional blindness, change blindness. But also we're verbally in mentalism doing a lot of things of the words we use and how we're saying it is setting people up to think about things. And sometimes afterwards going back and saying, we did this, we did this, we did this, we did this. And half the time, what I'm putting in things we know are true and a few things that weren't true in what I'm saying. So when you go back and you're re-remembering it incorrectly, and there's a lot of that things of when people tell me what happened in my show, and they'll sit there like, oh, you did this thing, and then this happened, and it's like that wasn't even close to what actually happened.
Wow.
But our mind, it becomes like, what is the effect? Oh my God.
Memory, they call it a Mandela effect. Sometimes.
The Mandela effect. It becomes like a lot of it's like a Mandela effect, where I hear lots of times people retelling the story of my show the exact same way that has nothing to do with the way things are done. And part of it is I'm telling them things and during the show, as I'm doing it, I'm saying certain things that takes their mind on a different path.
Yep.
And so it's a thing of like, it's
So the story telling them leads them in certain directions, and you say certain things that perhaps didn't happen quite that way, but that creates a memory in their mind. And this is a cognitive scientists have studied this forever. Sometimes you call it a false memory. I don't love that term because it's not exactly a false memory, right? The way our memory always works is something happens to us, and then we tell ourselves a story back and we reinforce the truth of it, right? And so, if someone else tells you something that didn't quite happen, it's actually not that different than it happening to you, right? You're going to tell yourself that story back and reinforce it in that way, and then create a memory out of it. So that's a fascinating insight into how this works.
Right. And what's always interesting to me is when I hear neuroscientists talk about magic, and I love it so much. It's that they'll show an example of one thing, like the change blindness test. But we're using that verbally doing it, physically doing it, doing sleight of hand, all at the same time. So sometimes when you go back and try to figure it out, it's like it's impossible for the brain to really kind of wrap your mind around what just happened, because it's not just one of them, it's multiple things happening at the same time.
And of course, that's the talent of someone who's trained over the course of their life like you, is to be able to do all of that and frankly to make it look easy in that way. And so
and there's a great quote about that I love. Chuck Jones, the animator who did
Bugs
Wile
Bunny,
E. Coyote and stuff.
Yeah.
Yes, and those things. He would say that what we do is 90% hard work, 10% love. But you only want the love to show. And I feel like that's with my magic. When I heard him say that, I was just like, that quote, I just thought, that's exactly what I do. I spend so much time hiding what most of what's happening to only show the audience this small little sliver. But in that small sliver, that's where the magic happens.
That's where the magic happens. I love that. Well, I have more questions to you because I just find it all fascinating. But Stephanie, do we have a question from our audience or two that we should take before I just keep on with everything I'm curious about?
Yeah, so we actually have a very interesting question from an anonymous attendee, but this one's probably going to be mostly for Jay. Is there a kind of brain that doesn't fall for magic?
Oh,
that's a great question. I'll tell you, and people also say, like, who's the hardest people to fool or who's the easiest to fool?
Yeah.
This is not what people ever think. The smarter you are, the easier it is to fool. and I think you could tell me the behind it more, like when the smarter you are, the more you know this is how the world works. This is how science works. And the easier it is to be like, their brain's so working on this one path,
Yes.
you don't see all the other things. And so, for instance, like if you take a can, and I'm holding this can of Coke. This is a real can, but for instance, you're thinking the whole can is there. There's liquid inside. Your brain is telling you so many things about it. So that's why, like, kids are harder to fool than adults. The scientists, engineers.
Yep.
Because I'm in Silicon, in the Bay Area and Silicon Valley, I've done most of my career has been Silicon Valley parties. You always walk in and there's a little bit of an attitude because they think they know so much.
They're so smart, right? We're
bunch
building
of people
inventing lasers and robots. So how can you fool us?
Yes. And they don't realize that they are the simplest people to fool. Now that they're simple. And
Sure.
and I keep saying the word fool, and I actually don't like that because
I agree.
When you say the word fool, it sounds like you're making a fool of them.
Right.
And I feel like I'm playing with them. I want it to be joyful and fun and not making a fool of them. But that's just kind of almost the easiest word to use.
Yeah.
But I think it's also not a good word. But that's a great question. So that literally, the smarter they are, the easier it is to fool. And if you take somebody who's half the time, the person that sees sometimes of how I'm doing something is someone who's barely paying attention, doing something else. On the side of their eye, they see something, and it's because I'm not able to misdirect them at all because they're not really paying attention. There's no attention to begin with. Yeah,
they have to be paying attention to you in order for you to misdirect their attention. Right?
Absolutely.
And
yes.
What you say about kids is so interesting because, again, our experience in brain development is like, hey, the brain is building a prediction machine. But what that means is if you, interact with the brain before that prediction machine is fully built, hey, it's not making those predictions. And
right.
you can't really necessarily take advantage of them because a kid doesn't assume that the can is full of Coke or all the way fully there and so forth. So
right.
Just amazing. And I agree with what you said about scientists and engineers. We're so focused on figuring out the trick that once we think we have an idea of it, our brains are rolling right down that path, so to speak.
Yep.
And have something else going on. I don't know if I mentioned this in my talk, but that magician, the guy who fooled Houdini, I'm sure you know this history better than me.
Sure.
My understanding of the way that he did that is he had a trick and he did it 5 different ways. And each time Houdini thought, well, I'm figuring this out, but the next time Dai did it in a different way. And that's of course an incredible testimony to his talent, but it also tells us once we think we figured out the trick, a guy like you's probably got a different way that they're going to do it for us the next time. So
absolutely.
Amazing. Just amazing. So, along that lines, if I can ask, and I don't mean this to be a rude question, but hey, what do you? Let me put it this way to you: how does a guy like you handle yourself on your feet when something kind of goes not the way that you're expecting it to do? How do you have the mental flexibility and kind of the toolkit to kind of keep it rolling?
I love that. It's the audience doesn't know what's supposed to happen.
Okay, all right,
and so. That's where your improv skills come in. That's where the playing with the audience. And I don't usually have anything major go wrong, but if things are going wrong, because what I'm doing looks real and looks like I'm reading people's minds or their body language or these different things, if I don't get it, it makes everything else seem so much more real. Because it's not like if I was doing something that's more of a magic trick and you're going to pull the bunny out of the hat and there's no bunny. That's like, oh, that trick was bad. When something goes wrong when you're doing mentalism, people are just like, oh, it brings them deeper into it. Okay. And because I don't present myself as, ha, I fooled you. It's, hey, let me show you this really cool thing. They feel more like experiments that I'm showing. And so
I love that.
So it's just like, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And then the next time when the next thing works, the audience is more engaged and brought into the story.
That's beautiful. I love that. Probably a lesson for all of us who are often out doing something and something doesn't quite go right. How we can stay on our
Yeah.
feet. Stephanie, back to you. Do we have another question or two from our audience we should take?
Yeah, I have a question from Charles here, which is an interesting question to me, but I'm not sure if it is going to be something that we can fully answer because we haven't really talked about it. But Charles is asking about hypnotism and whether that's a form of mentalism and how does that sort of work on a neuroscience level.
I have some views on this myself, although mine are completely uninformed. So let's start with Jay. Hypnotism, I suppose, is another branch. One might say
It's
sleight of hand. Maybe it's a kind of mentalism, or do you see it as different than mentalism?
it's a no, it's connected. I see it a little differently, though I know quite a few people that have dabbled in both. And I've studied a lot of books on mentalism, and I still have questions about my beliefs and thoughts on it as well. Like I don't, how do I put this? When you're driving on the highway, you're in the car, you're driving from San Francisco to LA, and you're looking at the sign and you think, God, I'm so far away, this drive's taking forever. And all of a sudden your mind puts yourself in a different state, and before you know it, you've
Okay.
driven 200 miles.
Right.
That's basically hypnosis. You're getting your mind into that different state, and you're there. Getting people to cluck like a chicken and all those things. I'm still not sure how much I've watched a lot of hypnotists. How much I believe is it? Are you really getting in there, or are these people that are kind of put into a different state that they're going to do it? They're not going to do anything that they don't want to do to begin with. They're going to go with it and feel they're being playful. And are they in a relaxed state, like having a couple drinks at some alcohol, and you're now kind of in a different state of mind that you might do something that you wouldn't have done otherwise a little bit. But I don't think in hypnotism you're ever going to do something completely. You're not going to be able to go get someone to go rob a bank or do some terrible thing. But will they stand up on a stage and sing? Absolutely.
Yep.
And that's the person that you thought was shy of beforehand. Yeah, they might do that.
Yep.
So, but I don't know the neuroscience or anything behind.
I'm not going to say that we've solved the neuroscience of hypnotism, but I like what you're saying, and I'll build on it, right? Which is, I think there is a mental state that you can get into around being relaxed and having what we would call your inhibitory controls a bit down. So one thing we know from neuroscience is that the brain is constantly creating, dozens, if not hundreds of actions you might take, right? At any point when you're moving, your brain has created dozens of movements you might make. At any point when you're speaking, your brain has created dozens of things that you might say. And a chunk of your brain, the frontal cortex up here behind your eyes, is entirely devoted to having you not do most of that, right? Most of that is not what you want to do, right? And probably we all know that because we've thought of something obnoxious to say, and at the last minute, we're like, okay, I'm not going to say that. That's your brain creating all of these actions, right?
I have to say it first off, but go on. Most people, yes.
Right. And so I do think that one of the things that's happening in hypnotism is, we are all social primates, right? We are primates. We're kind of grade ape that exists in a social structure. And I think that a good hypnotist can create that mental state where that inhibition goes down a little bit. And so some of those actions that our brain is kind of generating, now get out in a way that they wouldn't have otherwise. And I think a skilled hypnotist kind of creates that state and creates things that are just on the edge of would I do this or not. And then when the person does it, they're surprising. And they do that because our brains, they build in what other people want us to do it some way. But, it's not I wouldn't say science has cracked the nut on this particularly.
Right.
Stephanie, do we have time for another question here? These are great. I'm really enjoying them.
Yeah, I am too. I just wish we had more time. Let's do one sort of final question here. Actually, this is kind of an interesting one. Somebody in the audience is asking, what's the best way to overcome misdirection? And I guess my counter question is, why would you want to?
Why would you want to? Oh, Jay, is that a fair question to ask you? We don't
absolutely. It's not overcoming misdirection. I don't know how you overcome misdirection because it's you're always going to be misdirected. And actually, in magic, forever we've used the term misdirection. Yeah. It's not misdirection; it's direction. We are trying to. Oh man, the right word to say with this. We want to direct people's attention is all it's about.
Yep.
I don't want to say, hey, look over here. That's what I'm doing. I'm trying to get you to look over here, to not see the little thing I'm doing with my hand over on this side.
Yep.
That the big motion hides the small motion a lot of times, but it's I have to use my gaze, my motions, my gestures to direct you to something away from what's happening. But to overcome it, you're not going to ever overcome it. Someone good's going to be, there's always someone better that's going to be able to direct you in the other way. And just like we showed the shell game earlier, it's not about the memory. It's about the misdirection or getting your attention. And so you're not going to see the sleight of hand that's happening, making it impossible for you to follow that. Because no matter which one you choose, when you're doing a shell game, you could switch the P to any one you want, and so you'll never win. And it's just, that's how the game was made. It's you know.
So I have to ask as a follow-up, do you think YouTube is hurting magic in that way? I mean, I think a lot of people have the sense that, hey, if I saw this trick enough, I figure it out. Now, that being said, I've been to certain shows more than once and I haven't figured them out. And that's fine. I don't even want to, right? I'm the person who delights in the show. But do you think YouTube has been bad for magic in that way?
Is it been bad? I think it's created more attention for magic, which is good.
Right.
That part is good. I feel that there's a lot of people that have gone on and given it away and exposed things on YouTube. Magic that's not theirs to give away and expose.
Yep.
So it becomes ethically, I don't like it at all.
Sure.
Do I see that there's better young magicians than ever? Yes and no. Because they're learning technical abilities better. They're not learning to perform and how to perform because they're not getting real mentors. They're watching it and learning a secret. And magic is so much more than the trick. Like at my theater, it's a whole journey that I take people through, and I think through every moment of this journey, from how are they greeted at the door by my doorman? They're brought down a candlelit staircase. Do I put music in there? And it's like I soundscape it. So there's every moment I've thought through, and I'm still changing constantly. They go into a lounge. The way I seat people in the lounge, there'll be, let's say, one person's here and a group is here. There's a space in between. When I go to have them sit down, I will say, because I see people myself at my own theater, in a lounge. They don't go to the theater, and I'll say something like, oh, the people on one side of you are really nice. The other side, they're not nice. You're going to have to figure it out. It'd be rude if I told you. And I walk away. I'm not just saying this line as a smart aleck kind of line. I'm gauging how the people are reacting, and it's doing multiple things. I'm watching if the person says, yeah, we're the nice ones, or oh, they're the nice ones, or playful. Are they being playful? Are they like kind of uptight about it? And I also want it, when I walk away, it gets them talking and they become a bonded unit.
Yeah.
So when I bring them into my theater, the whole entire audience, a lot of them feel like they've made friends, they know each other. It changes everything for how I'm able to now interact with them. And they're already a bonded unit. So that's just a really great thing for me when I go to do the show. And so like the trick is one small part of making the true magic happen.
Okay. I love that, because we're certainly in an age where I think we all need to think about staying human, and like the technicalities of the trick, like you say, a person can master them, but creating the actual delight in a magic show is so much more about what you're saying. So
creating true wonder is amazing.
Yes, it absolutely is. Stephanie, I'm looking at the clock. I'm sure we have more questions. I have a million more questions, Jay, but we should probably hand it back to you and start to wrap up.
Yeah, absolutely. So speaking of Jay's show, I actually have a slide here. If you are in the Bay Area and are interested in seeing Jay's show, he does 5 shows a week.
Yes.
You want to sort of walk us through the sort of the options here of how people could get a hold of you if they maybe wanted you for a private event or to see your show.
Sure. Private events, go to jalexander.com. Corporate events, private events. And then my theater is sanfranciscomagictheater.com. We do 5 shows a week there every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. 2 shows a night, Friday and Saturday. We have food and drinks, close-up magic in the lounge. Then you go to the theater for the show. It's a complete experience. It's more than a show. And we're the #1 show on Yelp, TripAdvisor, Google. And please, if you come, tell me that you saw me on the show. That'd be fantastic.
All right. Well, Jay, I've lived here for a while, and I am now very much looking forward to coming to the show. So, well,
Yeah, Henry, we should make a point to go.
Yes, we will. That would be a delight. Thank you so much for joining us, Jay. This has just been fascinating and a wonderful delight.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a couple of closing words here. Our next webinar is going to be on November 12th. That is going to be our office hours webinar where we go over challenging exercises in BrainHQ. Our next BrainHQ Academy webinar is Brain Chemicals and Mental Health, What Scientists Know, and that will be taking place on December 10th. I also just wanted to thank Henry for your wonderful presentation, and thank you, Jay, so much for joining us. It was absolutely a delight to have you here. And I wanted to see if, Henry, if you had any last words.
I guess my only last words are that I hope everyone goes out and enjoys a live show of any kind. Go to a music show, go to a dance, go to a poetry reading, go to a magic show. It's a wonderful time to be out in the world and enjoying live performances like that. And with that, I'll say happy brain training, everyone. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, folks. Have a great day.